Deficit stiff leg deadlift. Now, if you thought a stiff leg deadlift couldn't get any harder, here's the answer. So before we get into the exercise, we're just gonna go over the setup. One thing to keep in mind is you wanna make sure you've got standard diameter plates. So for example, in some gyms, if you've got a 5 kilo plate, it might be half the diameter of that than a 20 kilo plate. And that's a problem. Reason being is if I'm only lifting with 5 kilos on each side, I don't want the bar to be lower to the ground, otherwise that's gonna put me at a disadvantage. If that's the case, if your gym doesn't have standardized calibrated plates, especially in diameter, what you can do to work around that is by placing some plates underneath your bar setup so that you're elevating it a bit so it's at the correct height. The correct height should be at about mid shin to lower shin, assuming your foot is on the floor. Now, once you've sorted all that out, the bar's at the correct height, you've got the correct weights on, and the diameter is sorted, the next part is the deficit in which you select. So here I'm using a 15 kilo plate. If you're sort of a taller person, start with a small deficit. If you're shorter, you could probably go a little bit thicker. But in general, just start small anyway. And then from there, depending on how you feel, if you're comfortable, then you can increase the deficit. So setting up, standing on the plate, right on the center. The bar is going to be slightly out in front, sort of in line on my toes. Grip is set at shoulder width or just outside shoulder width. I'm going to get nice and tight, hips are high. I've got a slight bend in the knees. Back is flat, create tension, shoulders back. Breathe in, hold. Bang. Lower it down with control. Breathe in, get tight. Bang. Lower it down with control. Breathe in, get tight. Bang. One more. Now, some things to keep in mind when performing this exercise. As you start to pull the bar up, you would have noticed when I did it as well, the bar should then come in contact with the body. That's one thing. Another thing to keep in mind as well is you want to make sure that your back is flat and you're keeping the weight on your heels. You want to be in that effective hinge position right here. I don't want to be here. This is a conventional deadlift. I want to be here where the knee is only slightly bent and the rest of the movement, 90% of the movement, is occurring through the hips. By the movement occurring through the hips, it's going to place greater emphasis on your hamstrings and glutes, which is the goal of this exercise. Other than that, some common mistakes when performing this exercise is people will do it with straight legs, which that is not the case. You want your knees to be slightly bent. Their weight might be shifting towards the toe or the midfoot. Again, you want the weight on your heels. And probably the last and most common mistake is making sure you don't have good posture. We don't want to be in this flexed spinal position. We want to be in this extended spinal position. This way I can feel my hamstrings and I can feel where the tension is on my glutes and hamstrings. Whereas if I'm here and I perform the exercise, I can feel the tension on my lower back. So that's something really important to keep in mind when performing this variation.